Tell me how beautiful Dubbo is this evening, Paul.
It is a great part of the world. Give it up for Andrew Bolt, everyone. Thank you, great man. Welcome to Dubbo's special edition of Paul Murray Live. As always, we put the politics to one side. After I tell you my thoughts of the day and we celebrate a spectacular part of the world. It's a part of the world that, as always, has battled the elements. There's been some flooding here, not too far from the main town. Our thoughts are with everyone watching us right now on Sky News Regional. And we even learned today that there's going to be, sadly, more flooding over the next little while. And it won't just be here, but sadly, it's going to be all over much of New South Wales. So much so that the New South Wales SES, made up of great volunteers, including places here, like here in Dubbo, they're going to have a new emergency warning system. So everyone in the audience here and everyone at home, get ready for this to be the three things that you're going to hear about. Roll the tape.
Storm season runs between October and March, and it's really important for our community to be prepared. So SES are out there already engaging with community members to ensure that they make safe decisions and ensure the safety of themselves and their families. So we have the new Australian warning system, which simplifies our messages and makes it very clear what's expected of the community and what the risk is.
This is what that warning system is going to look like. It is standard across the entire country now, but specifically for people who need to learn about something different in New South Wales, this is what it's going to look like in the next little while, where three different colours, fairly obvious which one is going to be the please leave your house now. But you're going to have the advice stage, which is to stay informed, keep an idea of what's going on around. Watch and act, which is to not enter flood water. No matter how many times you've driven through that stuff before, don't do it this time. Prepare to evacuate. Prepare to isolate as well and obviously avoid the area. Evacuate now is the biggest one, and that's the emergency warning, where you can obviously see that's going to be in red. You see that anywhere on social media. Time to evacuate, and evacuate now. Find some shelter, move to higher ground. I wanted to say all of that at the start of the show because there are a lot of people that always hurt as a result of natural disasters, and I just want to say strength and love to all of you, and thank you to everyone who is part of that incredible army of people who volunteer in the SES and, of course, work in the emergency services. Today, by the way, is Police Remembrance Day. That's why we have the badge on. There have been way too many police officers that have lost their life in the line of duty, and while at times we get frustrated with the overreach of how state governments used police, particularly in the past couple of years when it comes to COVID, I just want you to say you always have a friend in this program, the men and women of the police forces of this country. You run towards what other people run away from. You engage with people on the worst day of their life, and the good people, including, I'm sure, many of the people here in Dubbo, we thank you for your service. We appreciate what you do. And a little reminder, there are more good people than bad, and you are the example of the good people. So we absolutely appreciate that. Now, as you know, today's been a big day for the renewable energy nutters. They've got what they want. They've been able to use their full toddler power and billions of dollars behind it to get AGL to make a change when it comes to their power. But as you know, we have slowly but surely, and not so surely and not so slowly, blown up the power grid that actually works. We've blown up coal-fired power stations at a rate of knots, and that has meant that the people in charge of the national energy market are telling us to prepare for gaps, which is code for 21st century. A quarter of the way into the 21st century, get ready for blackouts. They don't have to happen. They shouldn't happen. But they are happening because of decisions that have been made by private companies, decisions that have been made by pressure groups, decisions that have been made by governments. And as I said, today was the biggest domino to fall. AGL, one of the biggest polluters in the country. Remember, we make up 1% of the world's pollution problems when it comes to CO2. And we're going to do something about 43% of it in the next 7 and a bit years. But AGL says they're getting out of coal, and to do it is going to cost $20 billion. Now, you know and I know that $20 billion doesn't come out of some sugar daddy somewhere. It's going to come out of the market, which means they have to borrow, which means they either pass it on to the customer, or obviously there's going to be potentially a little bit of state and federal government money in there as well, which means you have to pay. But of course, they're better than that, better than us. So the decisions have been made that one of these power stations, particularly in Victoria, goes about 10 years earlier than any expectation was. Now, let me tell you what others haven't told you tonight about this, which is two major impacts. Just how much power is going to be removed from the market by the time this particular power station closes? Well, if you have a look at this, AGL produces 2.2 gigatons, or in this case, 2,200 megawatts, and that's 30% of Victoria's power. This is after 20% of their power has already been blown away. As for AGL, They currently produce across the entire country 10 and a bit gigawatts of power. By 2030, they plan to replace this with 5 gigawatts of renewable power. Does anyone else see the problem here? Does anyone else see the gap in the market that may well be taking place? So the hope is, with $20 billion and fingers crossed, they can get to 12 gigawatts by 2036. I repeat, the cost of transition today is $20 billion. But in the Financial Review, they tell us the number's going to be way bigger. Why? Because AGL, which faces uncertainty about the future of its board, is in, and I quote, grave danger that its transition plan will be caught up in the capital expenditure cost blowout as it builds 5 gigawatts of the renewable power by 2030. So let's get rid of 10, replace it with 5 with the hope that eventually we produce 12. The cost, $20 billion now, but the cost of already replacing 5 of everything that they produce is already going to be billions of dollars and is already blowing out. But the other part here, people in the Sydney need to understand that regional Australia is not just a place for Airbnb. It is not just a place where you can expect people to work around the clock, to put up with flood, with fire, with all sorts of things to eventually produce the food that you eat. It is not just a place for pretty postcards, but it is, of course, a place where millions of Australians live. And the truth is, for all of these projects to take place, virtually none of them will end up being built anywhere near the people who vote for this stuff, who choose to do this stuff. There will be no changes to the shorelines of Sydney. You will not be seeing wind farms in the parks of Melbourne. Instead, this infrastructure needs to be built here. It needs to be built in regional Australia. And it is a perfect example of the big cities telling regional areas what they need to put up with. And sadly, because there is a fistful of dollars for the few who have the thousands of hectares to be able to put a little here and a little there, communities eventually get steamrolled. Perfect examples of these are places like Mudgee. Now, A Current Affair last night did a great story about this, and our mate Peter Credlin followed up today with a couple of people who were featured inside that story about a local area that 3 kilometres from town are going to have one heck of a giant eyesore, an eyesore that is admitted by the developer. An eyesore not just of the solar panels, but also of a giant pile of dirt that for some reason will never be moved.
This is not a location for a solar farm.
Because, as Ali Bronowski says,
it is the gateway to Mudgee.
Yes, right on the doorstep as those tourists from all over Australia enter this award-winning best town, it's proposed they will be greeted by this. A huge solar farm surrounded by a dirt mound. That's why Mudgee local Ken Sutcliffe, the former host of Wide World of Sports, has a dirty look on his face.
Don't put this on the front door to one of the most beautiful, historic and biggest tourist towns in Australia.
So imagine living next door to it.
We want to protect the visual impact. None of us are against the solar farms. We've ticked and haven't had a problem with all the others getting DA approval. This one, we told proponents right from the start that it was just the wrong spot.
We, as a council and business Mudgee Gaol, spent the last 25 to 30 years working really, really hard to make tourism such an important part of our economy.
But it's not just Mudgee. In Ballarat, which we've done in our town from before, one thing that's very obvious there is that locals don't like the idea that transmission cables that will be put over prime agricultural land, including places that make and grow many of the potatoes that are used all over the joint, including one of the farms that produces the most amount of potato for McDonald's fries. They, of course, will not be compensated for the giant change to their property, apart from the square meterage of the supports of the towers that will hold up these mega wires, and the locals aren't having a bar of it. Here's Channel 7 a bit earlier in the year.
Through the gold rush town of Ballarat, these farmers are in no rush. Instead, they're in a fight, they say, for their land.
Stop AusNet, baby. Stop AusNet. Stop AusNet's towers.
A protest against AusNet's plan to run 190 kilometres of transmission lines to Melbourne.
These outrageous 88-metre things are going to denigrate the countryside.
And then in Queensland, where we learned that $62 billion is going to be spent on a hydro project not too far from Mackay. What's going to happen there? Well, about 50 homes are going to be taken by the state government for this particular thing, let alone all of the infrastructure and all the rest of it that's going to be around. What matters here? Local communities, regional communities, or the demands of people sitting in office towers, living in terrace houses, living on the public teat who decide this is the way it must go. So put simply, before the rest of Australia, regional Australia has to change the way it looks, the way it lives, the reason that people move to places like Dubbo. Feel free, wokesters, to change something in your part of Australia. For example, if you're looking for a place to put some solar farms, I've got a great idea in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. Centennial Park. Feel free. Maybe it could be the dog park. Maybe it could be one of the ponds that you could turn into hydro. Would there be any chance to do that? Oh, of course not, because the locals would be outraged. People of Mudgee, they can get stuffed. The people of Mackay, too bad. It's coming your way. This is progress. Of course, maybe you want to find somewhere for wind farms. Well, then, of course, you can go to North or South Head, right in the middle of teal country. Any plans to change North or South Head anytime? Oh, no, of course, the locals would hate that. Mackay, too bad, we're taking your houses. Ballarat, bugger you, we're going to put these lines over the top of your farms. Places like Dubbo, Mudgee, too bad. It's the future. Now, for more than 10 years, we've had this conversation on TV. For more than 10 years, people who hate me, who can't be bothered to actually listen to what I say I don't believe in climate change. Well, of course I do. Of course we have to do something, and of course, if there is a better mousetrap, I'll be the first to be in part of it. But what I've always said is that just as dangerous as climate denial is, so is transition denial. This is going to cost billions of dollars. A report was done in 2018 from the CSIRO, you know, that far right-wing think tank, that said it'll cost $1 trillion. $1 trillion. The federal government was elected on a promise of rewiring the nation with $20 billion over the next 10 years. So someone's going to have to pay. It'll either be you, the taxpayer, or it will be you, the consumer. And too many people in regional Australia will have to pay with changes to their area from people who don't live here, who don't have any respect for the people who live here. So while we all go in this great national conversation, could you actually listen to some people in regional Australia? What do we think, Dubbo? Would you like to get a little more listening, not a little bit more telling? Well, that's exactly what we'll be doing tonight and every time we do Our Town Around the Country, because we care about the whole country, not just the bit that we live in or that the powerful live in as they pack their bags before going business class flying over regional Australia. Gabriella Power is where we start tonight with a great celebration of a wonderful part of Australia, the central west of New South Wales.
In the heart of the Central West, an opportunity to step into the animal world. Taronga Western Plains Zoo is home to some of the rarest species on the planet. And you can get up close and personal on board the Savannah Safari.
Have there been any close calls with this truck and animals?
Oh, look, we do sometimes have traffic jams, or what we call traffic jams out here, and this is where the road that we're on, so the dirt road through the exhibit, might have a rhino standing in the way, or a giraffe standing in the way, and I can tell you there's nothing you can do that's going to make them move if they don't want to.
Here you'll be transported to the African plains, where you can see the king and queen of the jungle and their cubs.
Yeah, they're a social species, so they really enjoy each other's company, particularly the three cubs that are still finding their way into the world and understanding what everything's about. They're very reliant on each other and on mum and dad.
These white rhinos are some of the more than 4,000 animals you can see here at Taronga Western Plains Zoo. The site is spread out over 750 hectares, so you can easily spend a couple of days experiencing it all.
Stay at the Zoofari Lodge, but the advice is to get in quickly as it books out 6 months in advance.
Experiences like this are just so highly sought after, and they're such an important part of the local regional economy, particularly for Dubbo.
More than 300,000 people visit the zoo every year to see the exotic animals and to learn about conservation programs.
Chris, it's great to be here at the old Dubbo Gaol. What can we expect to see here today?
Well, this is a original 19th century jail. It's state heritage listed. So what we're seeing here is essentially a original jail as it was when it closed. It held thousands of prisoners over the years.
At the jail, 8 men received capital punishment.
Chris, the last words of the 8 hanged in Dubbo Jail, it's really chilling to read.
It is. I mean, some obviously had a bit of quote-unquote gallows humour. From the first person hanged, their last words were, "Don't put it on too tight." But others are quite emotional and quite moving.
Inside are photographs of some of the inmates, original pieces of the Dubbo gallows, the largest collection of hangman's rope in Australia, a straitjacket and a whipping table where juveniles as young as 12 were lashed up to 25 times. The remand yard holds stories of those who were kept waiting for their trial.
The walls are full of prisoner graffiti. There's tally marks, there's names, there's drawings. You get some sort of insight into the prisoners in here.
These are the original cells where more than 15,000 prisoners spent time. Visiting old Dubbo Jail, you get a real sense of what life was like behind bars.
And for some, it was too much to bear.
Now, you can't blame them for trying, but this is the cell where prisoners attempted to escape.
Yep, that's correct. A couple of prisoners burned a hole in the roof. They got caught pretty quickly because of the smoke.
Old Dubbo Jail is in the centre of town and is open for everyone to learn about the brutality of Australia's prison history. An hour out of Dubbo, see Australia's prehistoric past at Wellington Caves. We put our hard hats on and went 20 metres underground into the cathedral cave.
This was actually once believed to be the world's largest stalagmite, but we actually now know it's a combination of boulders and flowstone. But what you're looking at here is actually all crystal on the outside, which is pretty amazing. You can see some great colorations in through here, and that's all because this is created from water.
This formation is estimated to be 1 million years old. It's named the altar as it was once a place church services were held. Going deeper into the cave, you can see science in action.
This is just a natural cave process, and as more crystal layers get deposited on top of the water, it creates a layer of crystal throughout your whole cave system, which is pretty spectacular.
And learn about the fossils being discovered.
How long have guided tours been operating here for?
Well, the first guided tour was actually back in 1885. So quite a while that people have been visiting our caves, and we still love taking people through today.
You can experience the natural beauty of the Wellington Caves all year round.
Oh, Wellington Caves is spectacular. We all remember those. If you haven't been in a while, it's time to come back. And there's plenty of things to see here in Dubbo and 3 beautiful people who celebrate this region, and 3 great reasons why you need to get here and get here soon. Well, representing the Western Plains Zoo, of course, part of Taronga, as we like to call it now, is Steve Hinks, who is their director, Estelle Joseph, who is with the Dubbo's Farmers Markets, Brendan O'Sullivan from Devil's Hollow Brewery. All right, notes away, time to actually talk to you. Steve, my family had a chance to go around the zoo today.
Excellent.
It's magnificent. Asha, Zadie, they had a great time today, along with their grandparents, mum as well. We all remember being at the zoo a long time ago, and anyone who's been recently knows, it is as top-notch as any other facility around the world. But there's this genuine sense of size and space and free movement of animals that is something you cannot replicate with your sister zoo in Sydney or anywhere else in the capital city.
Yeah, without a doubt, Paul. It's a beautiful setting. I mean, we're located on around about 750 hectares of land, which is a fantastic parcel for us to do what we do best, and that is African megafauna. So the big animals, the giraffe, we have Asian elephant as well, but 3 species of rhino. We're the only zoo in the region in Australasia that runs 3 species of rhino, which is black rhino, white rhino, and the greater one-horned rhino as well. So some really special things to come and see and do here in Dubbo.
Now, I had to ask, how did lions go during lockdown?
Yeah, the lions went really well in lockdown, as did a lot of our animals. And in fact, our keepers had a great time because they got to come in, spend the time with the animals without the distraction of having guests.
That's right.
And for a keeper, that is utopia. But of course, the gates opened again when the lockdown's finished. And I think all of Australia had been yearning for that getaway, and regional New South Wales just gives you that beautifully safe getaway, that very welcoming getaway. And of course, we have been doing record numbers month in, month out since we reopened the doors after the COVID lockdown.
Well, you did a record day in the gift shop today, I'll give you the tip.
Good work.
We did our best. They're very happy, and it'll all probably be lost on the way home, but I look forward to it very much so. Estelle, tell us about the farmers markets. Once a month, a big part of the community here.
Twice a month.
Twice a month, my apologies.
First and third Saturdays. So we're a not-for-profit run by stallholders. So we're an authentic farmers market, so we focus very much on food and farm produce. We draw stallholders from all around the region, not just Dubbo, but outlying areas as far away as Orange and Parkes and Coonabarabran. We've got about 40 stalls on the books, but in any given market there might be 20 to 30 or 35, depending on the weather and the time of year.
Now, tell me about some of the product here. We're commercial telly, we own the ABC. Let's talk about this stuff here. People can get this anytime they turn up at the market.
Yeah, you can, and a lot more. There's a lot to see. This one here I'd like to talk about.
Yep.
Jones Honey. When I first started the market 12 years ago, his wife passed away, and what really affected me was the amount of people that turned up to express their regret, and he gave away free honey for 2 markets with her picture on the label, and I just thought that's a little bit special compared to us shopping at the supermarket. Yeah, that's what I like about them.
That is beautiful. And so this is part of the community idea, right? And this is, again, not just the celebration of people being able to go to the market, but the people who literally are at those stalls as well. Brendan, I'm pleased to say that all of our crew has sampled much of the Devil's Hollow. Double thumbs up from everyone.
Very good. There's some in the fridge for you after the show, I understand.
Good boy, I look forward to it. So tell me the story. How did you start to go, you know what, I'm not just going to live in Dubbo, but I'm going to make my own booze?
Well, a group of friends were over in South Africa celebrating our 50th birthdays, and we wanted to have something left for the city that we'd grown up in. And, yeah, we decided to do a craft brewery.
So tell us about what it's like doing something. Can you source everything locally? Is there a lot of work that means you're bringing stuff in from everywhere else? Tell us about doing that.
Unfortunately, not so much, but labour and the spent grain goes out to the local farmers. They use it for their pig farm chickens. We even had a lady growing mushrooms out of it. But look, a lot of the community's really taken to us, and they support us really well, and we're really happy because we make great beer and they really enjoy it.
So, guys, you've had the chance to live here, live in other places. What's it like to live here, Estelle? What's it like here to be part of this community?
It's a big, friendly town. I grew up in Western Sydney, and it's completely different. I love the country. I'd never go back.
Yeah, it's only fair, right? What about for you?
Yeah, I think the same. I grew up in Sydney. I moved out here about 5 years ago, and it's a beautiful place to live. 2 young kids that call Dubbo home, and if you ask them, this is absolutely home, and they've got no desire to go back to an urban life, so they love it.
Like in many regional towns, and what I love about regional cities is that people may well have driven past, been here a few years ago, but the same cafe that you'd be able to get in the middle of the coolest part of town in Sydney or Melbourne, you can absolutely get here. Food offerings, all the rest of it here. You sort of get absolutely the best of both worlds, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, especially with craft beer, like we hadn't had it in Dubbo before, so we were bringing a taste of metropolitan life.
Yeah, good call.
To country Dubbo, and we actually attract a lot of metropolitan visitors that spring off the zoo, and then they come to our craft brewery. Dad says, "Okay, my turn." They come to the zoo, and they're really pleased. They go, "Yeah, this is something we'd be able to buy in Sydney."
Oh, and particularly after Dad has had to drag around. My favourite little invention, of course, at the zoo is not just the bike, but the little compartment behind it, right?
Caboose.
With a caboose, yeah. which is a great idea, beautiful thing. And I can tell you what, about a third of the way through the ride, it's like, when am I going to get to the Devil's Hollow a little bit later? But it's that thing where family is so important in Dubbo, and family at your zoo in particular, that you've built something that somebody from the other part of the world would come and visit. But families, they can see the timeline of their own families. Literally, the first ever road trip we took when I was a kid was to Dubbo, was to the old Western Plains Zoo. So to come back with my own kids is this incredible connection. And I'm sure you've got plenty of generational repeat business.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an old saying in zoos that you go as a child, as a parent and as a grandparent. We obviously try and inspire that visit more often. But it is, we call Dubbo and it widely regarded as the #1 family holiday destination in Australia. And that is because we've got such fantastic attractions. Obviously the Royal Flying Doctor Service, the old Dubbo Gaol, Wellington Caves, the zoo itself. But you talk about family, and it's not just the people that visit. it's the animals that live there as well. So you might have seen our 2 beautiful giraffe calves. And our 3 lion cubs as well around there at the zoo as well. So the family's not just the people on a zoo visit. There's a lot of different families that you run into.
But as you say, compared to Western Sydney, compared to the grind, I certainly know every time. One of the things, again, lockdown a year ago, but still, once you start to realise how busy these cities are, you start to notice how awesome not being in them is, right, Estelle?
Definitely. I love the farmers market. I mean, I complain about getting up at 4:30 on a winter's morning. I don't like washing up after the market, but that 4 hours of actual trading and talking to the customers, and the families bring their kids down and they walk the dog, they do the park run and have breakfast. It's a really fun family feeling. Yeah.
Very good. And what's the future for Devil's Hollow?
Yeah, well, onward and upward. Where good people meet, great beer is our logo. And through COVID, because of the border lockdowns and people couldn't go overseas, we did actually have a lot of people travelling to Dubbo to come and check it out, and they were really surprised and very happy to come out here because they'd never crossed the sandstone curtain before. So for them, it was a big adventure.
And thank goodness for all those travel vouchers, hey? They seem to keep people moving for a little while. Guys, thank you very much. Give them a round of applause because they represent the community beautifully. All of their details will be up on our Facebook page. In a second, we're going to meet one of the locals, a furry version of one of the locals in a moment or two's time, and also looking forward to talking about this city's connection to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. More in a second. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II visited Dubbo a couple of times. She did so in 1954 and in 1992. And with thanks to the ABC, here's how they reported it when the ABC was watchable.
Of course, the big cities had to have their big do's. But when it came to the country towns, why, we just opened our gates and our hearts at our throats.
Couldn't let them go without seeing Dubbo and the sheep from Eastern Australia. We live on these fellows. They grow a quarter of all the wool on earth.
Wasn't that fun when they all spoke like that on the ABC? There she is, the Queen here in Dubbo. Of course, the Royal Flying Doctor Service is something that she was a patron of for an incredibly long period of time, something they're very much thankful for here in Dubbo.
We all offer our deepest condolences to the royal family, who are grieving for a beloved mother, grandmother and great-grandmother. In 1954, during a visit to the Flying Doctor in Broken Hill, the Queen bestowed the Royal into our name. I was at our Cairns base when the Queen visited, and she spoke of her admiration and respect for the people from the bush. We can all take inspiration from her and give thanks for the remarkable contribution she has made throughout her historic reign, including her kind support of the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
And the wonderful Gabriella Power tells us more about this incredible organisation, which is 94 years young.
This is Cook, a railway town on the Nullarbor Plain in South Australia, not far from the Western Australian border, and the Flying Doctor can be called at any time. This time the doctor is landing on a regular periodic visit. They'll treat between 30 and 40 patients, some of whom may have come as far as 300 miles.
A mantle of safety for the outback. From 1928, at its founding 94 years ago, right through to present day, the Royal Flying Doctor Service is ready for takeoff.
Over the years, it's just grown so that we now have a doctor available for every flight. So we've employed a lot of doctors. Obviously we've now grown to doing a lot more than just the emergency retrieval.
The Royal Flying Doctor Service, Dubbo Base, provides primary health services, dentistry and mental health assistance. Doctors here travel to towns that are too small to support a GP.
Sometimes we'll go to pick up a patient in an ICU that needs more intensive care than what they can get at the site they're at, or needs a higher level of specialist service. And sometimes we go to a patient that's in such a small hospital that there's just sort of no one there that can provide the critical care that we can.
It's a job that can be unpredictable and requires all sorts of training.
We actually train for this. We actually train all of our doctors up into how to put a person in a ute or a four-wheel drive and then bring them to the plane and put them on the planes.
Doctors here say they often see communities rally together.
You'll go to a station to help maybe a sick child or someone's had an accident on a station, and by the time we get there, which is it's quite a long period of time, by the time I get there, there'll be a nurse from a neighbouring station, or there'll just be some people who heard over a radio and they thought they'd come because they had a medical chest and they could provide some assistance. Like, it's brilliant. It's amazing how the community pulls together.
This is one of 4 RFDS planes based right here in Dubbo that every day delivers urgent medical care to outback communities. On board the aircraft is medical equipment used in ICU.
We're set up really as a mini intensive care, so this is called a stretcher bridge. All of the equipment has to be tested for the aviation environment, so everything that we make has got to be tested.
In 1954, the Broken Hill base received a visit from Queen Elizabeth II.
The Queen saw this famous organisation at first hand, and over the air met the great outback it serves.
Sounds like she was quite impressed with what she saw, because the next year in 1955 she then wrote a letter to the Prime Minister and said that the Flying Doctor Service can now become the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
Members of the RFDS feel happy to be helping others.
We're a charity that's here to do good, and it's really nice. You're doing something that's good for other people. It's really nice.
The visitor centre is open to everyone wanting to experience what it's like to be part of the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
Blows to continue talking about this in the wider region. John Larkin, who's the head of tourism for the Royal Flying Doctor Service, and Dougal Saunders, who's the local MP and also the Minister for Agriculture in the New South Wales Government. Give them a round of applause. Lovely to see you both.
Thank you, sir.
So, John, tell me about the experience that people can have when they come and have a look at, this little baby behind us.
Well, we've actually been in tourism for a long time, but by the Dubbo Support Group, who actually put all the money together to actually build this for us.
Wow.
So we'd go out to the schools and teach them about the Royal Flying Doctor Service. And then Terry Clark, the president, said, you know what, we need to raise money to build a state-of-the-art centre to tell the story. So I was very lucky to be asked to do that. And so we've now got the #1 leading attraction in Dubbo by TripAdvisor is the Royal Flying Doctor Visitor Experience. And it's really interactive, very family focused, where people can come and get a real sense of what we do as an organisation.
Does Dad have to volunteer for a heart attack, or how does it actually work?
No, we do show a few emergency procedures and how things operate. A lot of it's interactive, virtual reality. We use a lot of really good digital technology, and so the kids can come and actually create an emergency and how an emergency happens, and they can see that unfold in front of them on a screen. But we also have a lot of things like we have a decommissioned plane. We also have our clinics, how that we actually operate them out in the bush. And you can see all the airstrips. So you can go down, one of these big screens come up and you can see where these planes land is quite incredible.
Wow.
And we really want to get a sense to show what it's like to live in the outback and in rural and remote Australia. So the whole idea of the service is that mantle of safety. And we want to teach people, because predominantly our visitation comes from Sydney and Wollongong, Newcastle, Hunter Valley. So those people have no touch points with the Royal Flying Doctors. So it's an incredible opportunity to show people an iconic organisation, the largest aeromedical service in the world, that does life-saving as well as primary health every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Dougal, when it comes to agriculture, let's imagine we draw a big circle around this area and then remove it from the map. What do people miss? What would disappear?
Oh, a lot of things. I mean, a large wheat, sheep, canola, beef, wool producing centre of New South Wales. We're basically in the centre of New South Wales here, and that's why, you've heard from some great tourism operators tonight. That's why it's such a popular destination, #1 in Australia for families, because we're in the heart of New South Wales. So we're easy to get to, great air services, great tourism attractions, great people, great produce. It all adds up to a great value sort of destination.
I mentioned it before, but those travel vouchers that the state government put in place, lots of other governments did it as well. But it did help places like Dubbo. I mean, right up until literally this month, people have been making the most of it. There's a bit of a run of it to get them done by the end of the school holidays.
Yeah,
right?
look, it's been massive. Honestly, after the first lockdown and the second lockdown, places like the zoo had their best ever trading years because people wanted to come here. Now, our job has been to try and encourage people to keep coming back. So you've been to the zoo once, but as you said, it changes all the time. It really does. I mean, I was a kid when it first opened, and how it's changed now and evolved to be what it needs to be now, a modern zoo that provides more than just looking at animals, interactive things, great catering, great experience. That's what you want, and that's what this region provides in spades.
To both of you, I mean, how's Dubbo changed over the years, changed for the better? What's the future that you feel like?
I've been really fortunate in my career. I've worked all around the world, and I live on a farm 30 kilometres out of Dubbo, and I'm a farmer as well. So I've seen Dubbo go from literally a little backwater to a really cosmopolitan place that I could live anywhere in the world. And I really like living in Dubbo, or Geary. Dougal used to live at Geary as well. And so being in a country area, it's like the Dubbo Support Group, how they put together, got all that money. Things happen out here in the bush that just don't happen anywhere else. And now it's on, it's really getting it to scale. And, I've been doing a lot of economics over many, many years. And one of the big things, Dubbo has now an internal economy that is big enough to self-support itself. So the days of when we'd have a drought and the whole town would die or be in really dire straits is gone because our internal economy is big enough.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It's not just agriculture. It's, our biggest employer is health. There's a great public service space here. Agriculture is a huge part of it still, but so is mining, and mining for rare earth minerals. And, the future of Dubbo is extremely bright. It's not a tree change anymore. It's a city change.
Yeah.
You come and live in Dubbo, you've got art, culture, music, sport, anything you want in a place like Dubbo with heaps better access, great livability. You've seen it in a day or two.
Yeah.
Mate, if you live here, you love it. You do it every day.
Bloody oath, I've got two kids that I don't think want to leave anytime soon. But I want to ask as well, when you're back in Sydney when Parliament's sitting, what are the things that you do to remind people that people live here? It's not just a spot on a map, it's not just a postcode, it's not something that needs to be dealt with. How do you personalise the relationship for people who run the joint in the cities about this city?
Well, look, literally each and every day in Parliament, that's what we talk about. We talk about regional New South Wales, and being a regionally based member, that's what I know, that's what I love. We need to represent, we need to keep reminding people. And a lot of people found the value during or after COVID. They found the value because they came and saw it, because people weren't going overseas. They were coming to our patch, whether it's Mudgee, Dubbo, Narromine, Wellington, Goulgong, whatever, they came. They saw, and they've come back again. They value it. They value where their produce comes from. They love where their produce comes from. That's important. We need to keep driving that home, because without us, the city doesn't survive. I mean, we're the engine room of New South Wales, here in regional New South Wales. We're proud of it.
Bloody oath. Come and visit. Thank you very much, lads.
Thanks,
do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Plenty more here from Dubbo in a second, including we're going to celebrate some of the amazing women of regional Australia. We thank the good people of Harvey Norman. They are the reason that we are able to do this each and every month. We are so indebted to them, and that's because they have a commitment to all of Australia, and regional Australia particularly, when they celebrate things like the great women of this part of the world through the Shine Awards. The Australian countryside provides a backdrop for some remarkable stories. Stories of resilience, ingenuity, heartbreak and triumph. Meet Tanya Lee Holmes, a proud local from Bathurst. Holmes is being recognised for her entrepreneurial success despite so much personal adversity.
In 2016, I woke up with a migraine and I went to bed and I woke up paralysed down my left side. I'm technically classed as a walking quadriplegic, so I use a walking stick to get around, but I also use a wheelchair as well. Imperfectly Perfect Sugar Cookies was created to keep me sane. I really had a rough time of dealing with my disability in the early stages, just trying to work out where my life was headed from there, and I just started baking cookies.
All of this, and Tanya still finds time for raising money for veterans, helping others with disabilities find their calling, and coaching her own son to reach his Paralympic dreams. Dubbo local Laura Dunkley is another inspiring woman whose entrepreneurship is helping artists in the community shine.
The motivation for Creative Fusion actually eventuated or came about in my art studio one night. I was teaching a heap of students and we got talking about the fact that there's really a lack of cafe space or gallery wall spaces for artists to hang work. We have the most incredible big cultural centre and it has amazing travelling exhibitions, but it's not really that commercial space where if you want a piece of art for your wall, you don't head there to go and buy one. And I think that was something that we kind of felt was missing as well. So to be able to connect local artists and our local people to be able to put local people on their walls, that culminates really nicely together.
From Dubbo to Orange is where we find Charmaine Buckley. Charmaine is a talented rugby player and a former business banker, but for the past decade she's dedicated her life to fostering children in need across the Central West.
And over that 10 years we've had 40 kids in and out, or close to 40 kids in and out of our home. And that, as I said, can be sometimes a day, sometimes months, sometimes forever. Foster caring has obviously come with its challenges, but it is definitely the most rewarding thing I think that I've actually ever done.
Charmaine is also an early childhood educator at Hippie Australia's Orange branch, helping local disadvantaged families get support and access their early education.
Obviously I love my kids that I've got at home more than anything in the world, but sometimes you just need that bit of time out, so that's where my rugby comes into it. So love playing rugby, love the community that is involved in rugby, but then also love obviously my job and helping out other parents with kids as well in their early education journey.
You see, it's often women who are the great backbones of rural communities right across the country, and their stories need to be told.
I think what the Shine Awards does is amazing, and I'm really, really honoured to be part of that this year.
I'm just so grateful that what I do is recognised in a way of people seeing someone with a disability running a business and being capable.
We are jack of all trades out here. We can turn our hat to most things in the bush, so it's nice to be recognised for that.
We love the Shine Awards. All the best to the team behind all of that. Now, in a moment or two's time, I'm going to give you a little clue of what we're about to do. This is Brownie. My special producer also tells me that the other one on the steps back there is Caramel, and Vanilla in the background. Well done, researcher. You might meet her a little bit later. Some furry friends next here on Paul Murray Live. And don't forget, we're going to have Rowan Dean up in about 15 minutes from now on Sky News, live from Dubbo. Well, we've had a lot of fun guests on the show, and I don't just mean some of the politicians. We have an alpaca on the TV right now. Hello, buddy. Amy, tell me, what is the name of this beautiful alpaca?
This is Maverick.
Hello, Maverick. How are you, and where does Maverick hang out?
Maverick hangs out at Quinton Park Alpacas and Studio Gallery.
I agree.
He's happy to talk to everybody today. So we're half an hour south of Dubbo on the Newell Highway.
Fantastic. All right, well, I've got a special person who'd like to meet an alpaca. Here is my daughter, Asha. Wave at the camera, darling. You're on TV. Hello, everyone. All right, give her come on, round of applause. This is beautiful Asha. All right, Asha Murray Live. We're ready to do this? OK, all right. So do you want to stroke the alpaca?
Give him a little pat.
Well done, Muffin. What does it feel like?
It feels very thick.
Feels very thick, does it?
Yeah, the thick fur.
All right, so you've got some pellets there. Can we feed the pellets? Let's go. Come on.
Try.
Hold it up right to his... Oh, there you go. Hello. What did that feel like?
It's very ticklish.
It's very ticklish. Well done. Very cool. So, all right, so obviously we've got these lovely little bits of merchandise as well, but I want everyone to see some of the alpaca wool products that are around as well.
Yeah.
Is that also available?
It is. So that's where we started with alpacas, Paul, is we started with herd guards through the drought for our sheep, and then I started to make products out of the fibre as a secondary income on the farm through the height of the drought. And then now we open the farm up and let people come out to meet them and get hands-on and learn something a little bit about these really incredible animals.
All right, what's it like to take care of an alpaca? Because I have a feeling I might have to get...
Well, you need two, Paul, not just one.
You have to
they
have
need
two.
to have their buddies. He's talking to his buddies out the back there. It's what's keeping him happy.
Does that mean because Zadie and me can have one alpaca each?
Yes, you can have an alpaca. You're born for TV, darling. All right. Very cool, very cool. So how many visitors have you had through recently?
Look, we had a 400% growth on our first year to our second year, and we reckon we're probably going to hit the number of visitors we had whole of last year by the end of November. So word is certainly starting to get out. We do a lot with our school groups and seniors groups, disability services, that kind of thing, where they can come out and hang out with the alpacas, spend a bit of time with them, learn something about them and just get outdoors and have some fun. But we've also got our gallery open so people can come and see all of the products that we make out of the alpacas. But one of the things really incredible, everything that we make is made on the farm, and you can actually meet the alpaca whose wool then made your pair of earrings.
I was going to say, I love it.
Or the bunch of flowers, which is really amazing.
All right, do you want to keep hanging out with your new buddy? All right, give Dad a hug. All right, love you, darling. All right, Ashley, you play with this because we've got a meat tray to give away. Thank you very much. Quinton Park Alpacas is where you can find them. The local federal MP is here, Mark Coulton. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, welcome to Dubbo.
Thank you. We can win Mark's meat. That's what we're going to do now. All right, you've done a lot of things in politics.
Yes.
Now it's time. So let's have a look here. All right, everyone, do you have your tickets? All right.
Here we go.
And the winner is?
The purple one, and it's a C76.
C76. Who's got Mark's meat? So, oh, there he is. He's proud. He's jumping straight up. Right, there you go, Mark.
Well
All
done.
the best. Thank
Well
you
done.
very much. Do appreciate it. All right, that is our show from beautiful Dubbo. This is a magnificent region with wonderful people. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you to Dougal, and thank you to all of the other wonderful representatives of this part of Australia. As always, the message is pretty simple at the end of these shows. Please see Australia. This is the greatest country in the world. Our regions are something to be savoured. They are worth travelling to the other side of the hill, the country, or the other bit of the map, wherever it happens to be. Please visit your local part of Australia sometime soon, if you're lucky enough to do it in the school holidays, with my future star little daughter and other star little daughter, Zadie, who's a little too shy to come on camera. But yes, I completely agree. We've got Rowan coming up in a second. Some people just like the red meat. We'll get to that in a moment or two's time. But as always, thank you very much for supporting us. Thank you so much to the very good people of Harvey Norman. Thank you to the good people here in Dubbo. Visit the regions of Australia. That's our message all the time. Make sure that you support the businesses. And back to where we started the show as well, that it's a good reminder to the people that are watching us right now in the cities, the policymakers, all the rest of it here, that it's real people who live here, normal people who live here, and people who deserve to be treated with the respect that they absolutely deserve, our fellow Australians. So from all of the team here on Paul Murray Live, and thank you so much to the good people of Harvey Norman, that's our town for this month. See you again on the road in a month's time, but back in the Man Cave on Sunday. See you later, Dubbo. Here's Rowan Dean.